Hey everybody, welcome to Back to Basics with Barb. In this episode of our little series on basic skill building, we're going to work on squaring up our little half rectangles that we made last time. So we're going to go over pressing versus ironing, and then we're going to go over how to properly square up a rectangle to the size that the pattern indicates. So first thing we'll do is press what we did last time. So here we are at my little pressing station that sits right next to my machine, and we have our half rectangle that we made in the last episode, and today we're going to work on pressing. So I have not measured these yet. I don't know if I got my 1/4 inch good. I don't know if it's going to be the right dimensions, so we'll do this together. Everybody has their own, little preferences about pressing, and so what we don't want to do is we don't want to drag. I'm going to move this so you can see. So we don't want to do this. We don't want to just be running back and forth with our iron, because that heats up our fibers and our cotton, and it's going to distort them. So we're going to put our piece that we need to press, and I've already finger pressed this a little bit, so it's got a little bit of a press from just my finger pressing, and I pressed toward the solid side. Now I like to use a little flatter on my seam, so I just give it a little light mist, and I have my small iron is here, so I'm just gonna put it down. I give the little seam a light little press, and then I'm just gonna put the iron down on it and give it a little press, and then I'm gonna flip it, and I'm going to give it a little press right there, and I'm going to just let it sit there for a few seconds. Then I'm going to press the rest of my little rectangle, and I'm lifting and putting the iron back down. I'm not dragging I'm holding this off there in case you guys can't see. I am not dragging the iron across the fabric. I'm just pressing down and then lifting up, and pressing down and then lifting up. Oh, I wanted to grab my clapper for you too. So this is pressed now. So my seam allowance I pressed toward the solid side. And now I have my rectangle pressed, and I'm ready to square it up. So I need to move the camera just 1 second. Okay, so here we are back at my little mini station that I have right next to my machine. And we're going to square this up to the required dimensions that are in the pattern. And so for this particular pattern that we're working on, they need to be 4.5 by 7.5. Okay, so, and I've already pressed this nice and flat, but before I can even square up, I can't stand these fuzzies, you guys, so I have to just nick them off real quick where I've been handling the fabric. So I just need to take the little fuzzies off, and then I can carry on like a sane person. And I take just the barest little bit of them off. I missed those all together, and I'm not like trying to be square or anything here. I'm just trying to get these little stray threads off, because I find them very distracting when I'm squaring up. So I'm just nicking these little, if you have any fray, on your fabric from handling it, I'm just getting those off before I square up. So, okay, learning to square up your fabric is an important part of quilting. So now we have our rectangle, our half rectangle, and they need to finish at 4.5 by 7.5. So one thing you'll find helpful is to put some edge of your fabric on what you know to be a true horizontal line on your cutting mat. Now again, I don't use my cutting mat to measure with, because they vary so greatly, but I do use the horizontal and the vertical lines to help me when I'm getting ready to square up. So I have a vertical line right here. You can see the dark vertical line that I put my left edge kind of near, a little bit over, and a horizontal line down here. Now I know my finished unit needs to be 4.5 by 7.5. So before I do any cutting, what I do is take a rough look at how the piece came out. So I put my ruler on, and at this point, I'm gonna use a horizontal line on the ruler as well, just so I know where I'm gonna need to square up really good. So 4.5 is right here. So I have the 4.5 line on this vertical line that I chose over here. Oh, I've got tape all over my nail. I don't know where that came from. All right. So I know I'm pretty good on 4.5. I have a little bit of excess right here that I'm going to trim off. And I want to look at my 7.5. So let me just see how I came out on length. So there's my 4.5, and I have good length on that. So I have enough to trim it up and get it nice and square. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure my vertical sides, my long sides, are both straight. So the way I do that is, again, I line my square up, not for measuring purposes, but to keep me true. And I'm going to put my ruler on. I'm going back to 4.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and my little half mark is right here. And I'm going to work right here at the bottom for a minute. So I have the bottom edge of the short edge of my rectangle on a horizontal line now on the ruler. And I'm looking over to the 4.5 inch mark, which is right here. Now, as I look up the ruler, I can see, as I align my 4.5 inch mark with the line on my ruler, on my mat, I can see that I have a little bit of excess here that I'm going to trim off, and then I'm going to flip my unit, and I'm just a little bit over my line right here, and I'm going to trim that. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim this little excess right here. I'm going to try to give you some more light on this. So I'm just going to take, there's not going to be much to come off of it, you guys, because it's a very little, I mean, that's it. That's it right there. That's what I got off of that. So now I know this line is nice and square. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to put this on a vertical line, my left edge on a vertical line, my short edge on a horizontal line, and I'm going to line back up my 4.5 inch marks. So the right edge of my ruler is on the edge of my fabric, and the left edge should be right at the 4.5 inch mark, which it is, except for one little smidge right there that's over, and I'll get that in a minute. This side looks really good. It's almost spot on. I don't usually even do that, you guys. I'm just going to give it a little clean swipe to get one little fuzzy off. All right, so my 4.5 looks good, and I told you I had one little spot that was a teeny bit off. So I'm going to flip it one more time. I'm going to go back to my 4.5 inch marks. I'm going to line my ruler mark up with the horizontal line I've chosen, so I know my ruler is straight. And I just have this teeny little smidge here. You guys probably can't even see it. And it's just me. But like, that was it. This little teeny fuzzy thing right here was just a little bit off. Okay, so we know now my 4.5 is right. Now I need to check my 7.5. And I'm gonna do the same thing. But this time I'm gonna put my long edge on a horizontal line on the mat, and I'm gonna put my short edge on a vertical line on the mat. And that's pretty much all I'm gonna use the mat for. I'm not gonna use it to measure. I'm just gonna use it as a guide for vertical and horizontals. All right, and I can't do that so we got to go this way. All right, let me see what I have. What did I have? A little bit extra here? Oh, I want to go this way. I do have a bit extra. So I always want to make sure both ends are square, so I always put my left edge just a smidge over whatever my vertical line is I've chosen. That gives me a little bit of squaring up room. So now I'm going to put my ruler on, and I'm going to set it, my left edge, this is the bottom of the ruler. The numbers are going up as I go to the left. I'm going to set my 7.5 on the left edge, and I'm going to put a horizontal line on the bottom. I'm going to line those up with the vertical and the horizontal lines on the map. Okay, so now my left edge, I have 7.5 on the vertical, and I have the other measurement doesn't matter for this instance because we're working on the length of our rectangle. So remember, I put my left edge just a smidge, and I mean a tiny smidge over, so I can just tidy that up at the end and make sure it's nice and square. All right, so the ruler's on 7.5, and you can see, I hope you can see, I'm a tad bit too far, I moved a tad bit too far. I have a little bit here I'm going to trim off now because that's a little more than I needed for my measurement. So I'm going to trim this off. And that was all I got there, just little tiny pieces. It's, you know, it shouldn't be, if you end up with some big chunk, you've done something wrong when you pieced your pieces together. Okay, so now I know this end is square. So I'm going to give this a little flip. Again, I'm going to put the left edge on a vertical, the short edge this time, and the long edge on a horizontal line. And I'm going to put my ruler back down with my starting numbers down here at the right edge, and I'm going to lay the ruler down, and I'm going to hope I end up with 7.5 exactly, which I do. So I've got my 7.5 inch mark over here on the left. I've got a good line down here on the bottom just to keep me straight, and I literally have just the tiniest little smidge here at the ruler edge to trim off. Just a smidge. I mean, I'm going to show you guys. I don't know if you can see this. It was just like a little fuzzies. All right. So this piece is now 4.5 by 7.5, which is what we needed for the piece we were working on. Now I'm going to show you what happens if you, I don't have enough to do that. I want to show you what would happen if I ironed it. Like ironed it. In fact, I'm going to make one. I'm going to make one for us that I can show you the difference if you're ironing, what'll happen to your rectangles. So be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I'm going to show you what happens if you really iron this piece rather than pressing. So here's my untrimmed rectangle. Let me turn the camera a little more for you. Move this up here a little bit. Move this up here. Okay, here's my iron. I'm going to really give it a good old, I'm going to iron it like I'm, you know, trying to save my life here. So I'm ironing, I'm rubbing really hard. I'm just, you know, giving it the full, get the wrinkles out of the shirt iron. All right, so there. All right, I ironed and ironed and ironed that rather than pressing. And I'm going to just show you quickly. I don't know if you can see how much distortion I created. So on the one that I trimmed for you, I barely took anything off of. And I don't, can you guys see this? Can you guys see how much more I created by stretching that out with the iron like that? So I've probably really distorted the whole thing, and I'm going to have to rescue it because I don't have any of this fabric. To make up my little project, I'm going to need it. So I'm going to have to rescue this one. But you can see I really like gained probably almost 1/8 of an inch there by ironing rather than pressing. And you don't want to do that. You want them to be nice and accurate and not distorted. Okay, I'm going to square up the one we just distorted for you guys, just so you can see me do it. Of course, first I have to get these fuzzies off because they drive me crazy. So if you're just watching for the first time, we're doing a little, just kind of a back to basics series. I'm working my way through a 3-yard quilt pattern, which we carry here in the shop at Seaside Quilting Supplies, www.seasidequiltingsupplies.com. And I thought we'd use it to do some back to basics. All right. So I'm going to put this on the mat like I described before, with the left long edge on a vertical line and the short edge on a horizontal line. All right, and then I'm going to check my 4.5 and see what I've got here. So, and I know this is distorted, so I'm going to make this, I want to be sure I put this a little bit over whatever vertical line I choose here, just a little scooch over the edge so that I can clean that up and make it nice and square. Here's my 4.5 inch mark on this ruler. I'm going to make sure it lines up on the mat with the vertical line I chose. All right, so now I know my horizontal and my vertical lines are straight. Now I'm going to take off, and I have some on each side of this line now, so you know I had some distortion because we did not have that in the one that I pressed. So here's my first clean cut, and I have, I mean, that's like more than I had on the other one altogether right there, you guys. I don't know, can you see that? So then I'm going to flip it. I'm going to put my nice clean cut on a, trying to stay in the shot, good for you, on a vertical and a horizontal mark. And I'm going to check my 4.5 on this side. Oops. Excuse me. Get that better right there. All right, my 4.5 is there. My horizontal's good. My vertical's good. Now, I mean, I'm going to have a whole strip here. Skinny, but still, nonetheless, more than we had. I mean, we didn't have anything nearly this big on the other unironed, just pressed. So that was my 4.5 inch. So now we know that's nice and tidy. Now we need to check the 7.5. So I'm going to put the short end on the vertical line and the long edge, excuse me, on a horizontal line, and I'm going to scooch it over a little bit because I know I'm going to have some distortion from all the ironing. And I'm going to lay my ruler down. All right, so we need this dimension to be 7.5. So I'm going to put 7.5 on the line on the horizontal line I chose. I've got a little bit of glare where I'm sitting. Let me fix that a little bit. Ugh, too much glare. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to use this line. 7.5 right there. And my horizontal line is good. Now, I put the end that's lined up on this vertical line just a teeny little smidge over so I can make sure that's nice and tidy when I'm done. And I don't have much to trim on this end. And I'm going to flip it and do the same thing. So short end on the vertical line on your mat, long end on a horizontal line on your mat. Put your ruler down on 7.5 because that's how long you need it to be for this particular pattern. And this lesson isn't about the exact measurements, you guys. I'm not trying to teach you a pattern here. I'm trying to teach you rulering 101. All right, so I'm lined up on the vertical. I have a good line on my horizontal, and I have a good bit here on the end to clean up because we ironed and didn't press. So look, we got this, another good sized chunk off of there. All right, so I think I rescued this enough to be able to use it because I'm very, very short on that fabric for my project. So that was squaring up our, oh, sorry, hang on. That was squaring up our little half rectangles that are going in this particular project. Now, of course, that's not specific. What I showed you is not specific to this project. The lining your ends up on horizontal and verticals, and then lining your ruler up so that you're on a horizontal and a vertical, those are just good ways to get yourself nice and true and square. And again, don't use your mat to measure. You can use your vertical lines for helping you be true, but use your ruler for measuring and use the same ruler each time. Okay, we'll be back with another lesson. Hey everybody, it occurred to me maybe I should show you how to get that diagonal line nice and straight that we were drawing on our fabrics in our previous episode. So I'm going to do another one here, and I'm gonna just tell you that, oh, let me turn you down a little bit here, you don't have to see me. So I need to mark this piece of fabric, and I need to mark from this corner to this corner. So what I wanna do is put this point at an intersection on my mat, the intersection of a vertical and a horizontal. I'm gonna put it right there. And then I'm gonna follow the line down, and I'm gonna put my bottom point on that same line. Now you may or may not end up at an intersection, that's not that important. But now I know my points are on this one vertical line. Now I'm gonna put my ruler down right here on it, and I moved my fabric a tad when I did that, so I'm gonna move it back over. Moved my fabric a tad on both ends. Okay, so I'm going to put that back there, and now I'm lined up on the vertical with my points, and then I'm going to put my ruler on a point and a point, and I'm going to make sure I have a horizontal line lined up with my mat. That just helps me make sure I'm true all the time. And I'm going to take my little Frixion marker that goes away with heat. And yes, if you put your quilt in the freezer, apparently the ink might come back. I don't store mine there, so, and mine aren't show quilts, so it's okay for me. Okay, so now I've marked this, and then what I'm going to do while we're off camera is I'm going to go ahead and make my other units so that we can talk about how to make a strip. So then you're going to line up your point and your point, and I'm going to do exactly what we did in our previous lesson, which is sew a 1/4 inch on either side of this, and then we'll cut down the middle and we'll get 2 more units. I just wanted to cover lining this up on a vertical line so that you have a nice, good diagonal there. Okay.